First Timothy 5:19. Let's go back up to 17 just to get some context. Let the elders, so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about church elders. Let the elders who rule well be considered worthy of double honor, especially those who labor in preaching and teaching. For the scripture says, "You shall not muzzle an ox when it treads out the grain, and the laborer deserves his wages." So we see what we're talking about. Elders, do not admit a charge against an elder, except on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. As for those, same context, same sentence. As for those elders who persist in sin, rebuke them in the presence of all, so that the rest may stand in fear. So Tracy asks, referring to 1 Timothy 5:19, what constitutes an accusation against an elder, and how can this be done biblically? How would it look practically in a local church? Okay. There was a day when a deacon brought an accusation against me. And I let him bring it. I let him bring it in front of a group of men. Basically, you could call it like a tribunal that was set up. It consisted of all the elders, and it consisted of a handful of men who were being considered for the eldership. And this one deacon was in this meeting. I allowed this deacon, I just felt that it was the best way. He had a grievance against me. He was bringing charges against me. The thing about this deacon, we never had a deacon in the church ever in the history of our church that so freely brought accusations against elders. We eventually had him, we removed him from the diaconate, we removed him from Sunday school, and we strongly encouraged him to find a different church, which he did. We never had anybody in the church in 20 years that freely brought more accusations against every single one of the elders. And so, I mean, that kind of describes the guy. But rather than just shutting the guy off, I let the accusation get brought against me in front of this tribunal group. We hashed through it. I forget how many different meetings he brought these accusations. In the end, I had to plead verse 19. There was no other evidence. This guy was bringing this accusation against me just on the evidence of one person. I let him bring it, but he never made his case in front of the other men. He never proved in front of the other men that his case was valid. And so in the end, I pled verse 19, and I said, guys, I have to plead 1 Timothy 5:19, that because he doesn't have any other witnesses to this, that he cannot bring this accusation. And he said, so what? In the church, if there isn't a second person to validate an accusation against the elder, I have to be quiet? Yes, that's exactly the case. That is exactly right. Why? Because I mean, look, it's the same for the death sentence in the scriptures. You could never put a guy to death except on the testimony of 2 or 3. Here's the reality. Am I likely a criminal just in front of one man? And never does anybody else see that same thing? That's not likely. God knows full well that if a man has a practice in his life or he has a reputation in his life, more than just one person is going to see it. And so the first thing is this. If somebody in the church has an accusation against an elder, look, it doesn't mean he can't go and talk to the elder. It doesn't mean he can't go to others in the church and find out if other people have recognized this. I mean, look, you guys are saying Kevin disciplined people in your church that wrote you. And now, after everything that's happened, you've gone back and you've read what they wrote and you recognize, wow, we've seen the same thing. You see, if I observe something in an elder that's wrong, it doesn't mean I have to stay quiet. If I'm troubled by something, I've observed something, then the first thing I would do, like, I mean, just imagine a situation. Imagine that I believe it's the Lord's will for me to pack up, Ruby pack up, and we come to Manchester. And I'm basically functioning as an elder in your church. And one of you sees something that you think is sin. The first thing you always want to do is go to the person. I mean, the very flavor of Matthew 18 is go to the person. You go talk to them. Now, look, if I won't hear you, well, what do you want to do then? I would say that you would go to one of the deacons probably, or you would go to all the deacons maybe at once. And the thing is, it's not just enough to go to more people. It's not just to bring an accusation against an elder. It's not just that you find other people who are willing to go with you. It's that you actually find other people who are witness. That means they've seen what you've seen. That's what you're looking for. It's not gossip. It's not bad if you're looking to see if anybody else has noticed this. Now, it can be bad if you're subtly undermining somebody's character, or you've seen something and you're beginning to recognize nobody else has seen it, but now you're trying to convince other people that something bad's going on when the fact is you're really just poisoning people's minds. You want to be careful. When you're dealing with elders, I mean, there is a place to seek to show respect. But here's the thing. If you get an elder who persists in a sin, to have a church meeting where you stand up and you confront him, look, you see it. Verse 20 says it. Those who persist in sin, rebuke them in the presence of all, so that the rest may stand in fear. What that tells me is this. It's possible for me as an elder to persist in some sin in my life that doesn't demand I be removed from being an elder. But it may demand that the church be faithful enough to stand up and say, brother, we've sought to approach you about this and you have not been open, and we're going to confront you openly. You can see it there. Now, to rebuke an elder in the presence of all, is that an easy thing? No, usually that's not very easy. And look, a lot of churches have Diotrephes at the helm. That if you try to confront him, he's going to blast you. He is going to seek to destroy you. I mean, this is one of the things of basically trying to confront people in leadership, whether it's in government, in the military, in the church. If you go against leadership, you often are really exposing yourself. You're opening yourself up for, I mean, look, the reality is there's more than one power hungry pastor in the world who, if you seek to touch him, he's going to say, how dare you touch the Lord's anointed? And now he's going to seek to destroy you, blast you, run you out of the church. But I'll tell you this, if you're being faithful, you saw it from those churches we dealt with in Asia Minor. If the church is going to be faithful, it doesn't matter what position anybody has in the church, you do not let them persist in sin. And you do not let them persist in false teaching or bad teaching or teaching that is beginning to go astray. There is no man in the church, it doesn't matter who it is, that is beyond being reprimanded and being openly rebuked in the presence of all. There's a place for doing it. And if a man will not submit himself to that, then he really is not he's showing himself disqualified. You know, if a man is quarrelsome, you want men who are strong. But you know what? In all their strength, they need to be able to be men who can say, you're right, I was wrong. You want strength, but you don't want Diotrephes. So anyway, there's obviously a lot more that could be said. There's obviously specific situations. I've never had the church collectively rebuke me. I've had a woman stand up. I told you all this before. I've had a woman that stood up and she openly rebuked me. She was just dead wrong. But I've had other elders come to me and deal with me about things that they perceived were wrong. And some of them, that they were very obviously wrong. Definitely had my wife deal with me about being wrong, and I know I was wrong. You want to live in light of the truths that you find here, and you want to be prayerful. You definitely want to know that what you're doing is not just your own vendetta. You're not on your own mission. You really want some sense that God's wanting you to do this, because look, no elder is perfect. And so the last thing you want to be doing is trying to just look for any fault. Like I say, we had this one deacon. The feeling that we got was that this deacon felt like his main task in life was to protect the church from the elders. And it went from one bad situation to the next. He constantly was challenging the elders. And yes, there's a place to do it, but there's also, you also get some people who just buck against authority. So we want to make sure that we're doing it in a spirit of humility, a spirit of prayer.